Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tantra Tuesday. I'm going to be here with you every week with a new broadcast, what's on my mind, what your questions are. And today, I'm going to dive into one of the ingredients of tantric sex. This is something I get asked about a lot. And there's a whole host of ingredients that we talk about more in Tantra 101. But for today, I'm going to focus on accessing your body perspective. And I'm going to talk a little from the perspective of Neo Tantra at the beginning, and then I'll touch briefly on the perspective of Tantric sex from a classical Tantra perspective at the end. And if these words are unfamiliar to you, that's okay. We go into that as well in Tantra 101. They're two very different forms of Tantra. And if you've ever known a kind of advanced tantric practitioner, they might actually not have the same need for sex that they did when they first started practicing. And that's kind of because they might have been practicing how to be having sex in every moment, how to have a merging of consciousness with all of their emotions and all of their experiences. And so it kind of becomes like a union that's happening in every moment. And it can take away some of that urgency, some of that animal need that we sometimes feel for physical sex. But don't worry if you're not enlightened yet. There's lots of places to start before we get to that point. So I'm going to talk a little about this idea of accessing your body awareness, your body perspective. And I want you to think about this. Like, a perspective is kind of the vantage point through which you're experiencing your environment. And there's lots of different vantage points that we can experience things from. So imagine that there's a little bead of awareness in your head, and you're kind of experiencing things from the perspective of your mind. So when you hear my words, you're experiencing them through your mind, you're thinking about their meaning, whatever's happening around you, kind of thinking about what this means. Then I want you to imagine that this little bead of awareness is inside an elevator. And that elevator can move up and down at your will. So bring that little bead of awareness. Just imagine that elevator could come down to your neck, and that you could experience this moment from the vantage point of your neck. So what might that involve? Well, maybe you can feel the sensation on your skin of maybe the shirt, the collar of the shirt that you're wearing. Maybe you can feel the hair, if you've got long hair, touching your neck. Maybe you can notice the temperature in the room on the skin of your neck. It's like everything in your environment is being experienced from the vantage point of your neck. You know, maybe if you're listening at a high enough volume, you could actually notice that the sound of my voice has a vibration, and that you could feel that vibration from the level of your neck. And now, for fun, let's take that elevator down one more level. Let's take it down to your stomach, your waist area. And imagine that little bead of awareness is now sitting at the level of your waist. And let's get even more specific and just feel your belly. So feeling this moment from the perspective of your belly. How does your belly feel? When it hears my words, what's your belly's reaction? And you can take this elevator up and down as many times as you want during the day. And you're free to move it wherever. That little bead of awareness has infinite places it can go. And can you guess where it hangs out most of the day? Well, for most of us, the bead of awareness is in our head, and it's in our mind. And it's especially there during lovemaking. So what does it look like to have sex from the vantage point of your mind? Well, it can be interesting because our mind has a way of translating everything that happens. So there may be a sound that your lover makes. And when you hear that sound, if your beat of awareness is in your mind, then that sound from its core essence, its isness, whatever that sound is, gets translated and it gets run through all the filters of your experience. And it's as if it's running through this encyclopedia of your life, and it's being matched to things that happened in your life. And then it gets classified and put into a bin. So if the sound reminds you of something that happened in the past, your experience is going to be heavily weighted towards how you felt then, which may have nothing to do with the current moment. And I'll give you an example of how this works, that's not related to sexuality. And this is how you experience things through your mind, and how from here we experience things lost in translation. So what's happening sometimes is irrelevant if we're processing it through here. And let's look at this from an example of you and your friend walking in the park. And let's say that you come across a group of children and they're playing and they're laughing and they're having a great time. If your beat of awareness is here, you're going to hear that sound. You're going to see that sight. And you're going to go through the whole encyclopedia of your life. And maybe you find an image of you and your family laughing and playing. And maybe you're the center of attention and everyone's loving on you. Well, that moment gets labeled as something like joy. And when you experience the children laughing, you feel joy. And your friend who's sitting right beside you is going to do the same thing that you did. They're going to hear the sounds, they're going to see the sights, and they're going to filter it, if their beat of awareness is here, through the encyclopedia of their life and their experiences. And they may have different pictures there. They may land on a picture of when they were a child being told to shut up, told to be quiet and don't disturb anyone. And so for them, that experience might be a micro trauma, a reliving of a micro trauma, and it might express as an irritation. So you're both seeing and experiencing the same thing, but for you, that moment is one of joy, and for your friend, it's one of irritation. So let's bring this back into our sexual context. And what does this mean? If we're having sex from here, then everything that happens is filtered through your encyclopedia, and it's experienced according to what happened before. So this can be a little bit limiting, right? Because maybe there's a sensation that feels really good, but your partner makes a sound that reminds you of something else. And so your experience goes to that moment, and you're no longer there present with your partner. It may happen where maybe it's not even a micro trauma, but maybe it just gets you thinking, oh, that sound means, I think that means they like it. Or that facial expression, I'm not sure. I think maybe they're not enjoying that. Maybe I should change what I'm doing. And we can get into this whole story. It can be one completely uncontrolled sound that comes out of our partner's mouth. It may have nothing to do with the meaning that we're assigning it to, but we can create a whole story around it. And, oh, I better do that. And, I remember I did, that particular thing, and it created the sound, so I better not do that thing again. And we can get into this spiral. And it creates a disconnect between our mind and our body. So imagine what could happen if you could use your elevator and bring that beat of awareness down and experience the moment from your body. Now, the body has a certain level of truth because it's a direct transmission. Whatever your body experiences is what's happening. And it's only when we start to assign layers of meaning onto that, when we process things through here, that you and your partner can be sitting in embrace, in sexual embrace, having what appears to be the same physical experience, but in two completely different worlds, feeling completely disconnected on two separate train tracks. That happens when our bead of awareness is here. If both of your beads of awareness are in your body, then you're experiencing the same thing. You're actually sharing a moment where you're both there. And I'll give you an example. Again, I'm going to take it out of the sexual realm just to give a really general example. And this is at a time when I was just coming back from all the chaos and the noise of India and was deeply craving a place of peace and solace and, above all, quiet. And so I found a very quiet neighborhood, and I made sure that the building I was looking at had concrete walls and I wouldn't be disturbed by my neighbors. And I moved in and very shortly realized that my scouting was incomplete and I had missed the fact that there was construction happening almost next door. I don't know how I missed it. I don't think they were doing it yet, actually. But needless to say, it was not a peaceful home. And the sounds that were coming were of a chaotic nature. They reminded me of driving through a construction zone with bulldozers and jackhammers, and everything about it made me want to run away. Everything about it reminded me of a place where there's no peace and there's no solace. But I noticed that my bead of awareness was here and that I wasn't experiencing the sound of construction from my body perspective. I was running it through my encyclopedia, which didn't have great things to say. And so when my bead of awareness went down, I could actually experience these sounds at their essence for what they were, which is vibration. And at first, kind of tuned into a subtle tickle, that really kind of light vibrating. You know, I tried it out in my leg. I felt this little vibration in my leg. And then I would move that elevator around to different parts of my body and feel the vibration in different parts of my body. And this was a completely different experience. This started to become a fun and enjoyable experience. And if you think about it, you know, some people buy vibrators. That's actually a thing that we'll pay money for, to vibrate a part of our body. And here I was having this free vibrator that was available from pretty much 8 to 6 every day. So this practice can take you to the truth of the moment without any assigned meanings, without matching it to the encyclopedia of your experience. And it can bring so much closeness to two people because then you're actually there with each other experiencing the same thing. So I want to say hi to everyone who's here. Thank you so much for joining. Terry, I haven't seen you forever. And Leroy brought up an interesting point at how you can find tension where you never expected by moving the bead around. Yeah. Some of these places are like strangers to us, and we haven't felt these parts in our body. Maybe they're numb. And it's kind of because we've ignored them. You know, we're so busy making meaning of everything, which we need to do. I mean, our mind is obviously essential and beautiful, but we don't always have to be looking from the perspective of our mind. So I wanted to just chat a little, just really briefly touch on Tantra or Tantric sex from the classical perspective. So from the Neo Tantric perspective, we can learn all these techniques for this amazing lovemaking and prolonged orgasms and full body orgasms, and it's amazing stuff, right? And if we look at the classical Tantra, some of the lineages, there is no such thing as a physical tantric sexual practice. And there's a quote that I really like, and I'll I'll read it for you, and it might not really sound like, it might not make sense, but I'll deconstruct it a little. And I'm paraphrasing, but it says that Neo Tantra ritualizes sexuality, and classical Tantra sexualizes rituals. So to me, that means that Neo Tantra is bringing these beautiful spiritual elements into sex, and classical Tantra is looking at this whole universe as a lovemaking. And a lot of the tantric iconography is set up to show us that this whole world is a lovemaking, essentially. It's a coming together of polarities. It's a unifying of consciousness and energy of Shiva and Shakti. And you can start a practice of making love with every single moment. And that's like a deep merging with whatever moment you're in, a deep intimacy. And you'll notice, if you try this out, that the biggest roadblock to this kind of intimacy is resistance. And you might recognize resistance in your body as that time when you're wishing it was some other way. So if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you're looking at the clock thinking, when is 5 o'clock coming? That's a form of resistance. And if there's resistance present, then we can't be open. We can't make love with the moment. If there's a lot of rigid thought patterns thinking, oh, this is how it is, it has to be this way, then we can't be penetrated by the moment. We can't make love with the moment because there's nowhere for the moment to go inside of us. And so this practice of sexualizing everything is kind of what I alluded to at the beginning. You know, a tantric master doesn't need to have physical sex. They can for the joy of it, but they don't have that compulsion because there isn't this inherent separateness happening as they walk through their day. There's a constant lovemaking that's happening through the whole day. And so, you know, through the practice, sex can become a beautiful, joyful act, but it won't have that same power that it sometimes has to bring us into a situation that doesn't serve us or to bring up complications in our relationship. It can just be a choice to choose one of the infinite ways to have sex in the moment and choose to do it in a physical way. So if you're curious about this and you want to try this out, like, okay, what would it be like to have sex with the moment? What's that like? That sounds a little bit juicy, doesn't it? So here's something you can try. Next time you're walking along the street and you see the trees, you can start to look at the trees as something that has energy and something that has this energy that you could actually merge with. So you can start to feel into yourself and see if you can feel your own energy. Maybe start to kind of open your heart and feel the energy of your heart. And then kind of reach out with your awareness and notice the trees. And imagine that they also had an energy and that your two energies could start to mix and could start to merge. And imagining, if you want, that tree was your lover. What if you could actually make love with that tree as you walk down the street? So it might sound a little bit strange, but it's a good starting point if you want to practice this making love with the moment. And eventually you can start making love with your emotions and making love with hard situations as they come up, and eventually start to spend more and more of your day in that state of lovemaking. All right. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. And thank you so much, Leroy, for your reflections through the talk. Those are great. And Angela, thank you for joining. Good to see you. And Sarah, Jolene, Lewis, Travis. So good to see you all. And Jennifer and Trevor. I wish you all a beautiful night. And if you have anything you would like me to talk about next week, then let me know, because I haven't yet decided what I'll speak about. All right. Have a beautiful evening, you all. Bye-bye.